My name is Arch Cowan Jones, and what follows are poems from my book, Into the Now. The present moment is the work, so I punched in for a double. The words to follow are what I learned, and I begin by acknowledging my defeat. I was not a poet nor a sage. These words came to me pretty much this way. Please accept this as my apology. Hard truths like these words will prove inadequate to convey how I found heaven hiding in the now. Christ consciousness was my way. I want to start with a poem dedicated to my wife. I thought one day, just had the thought, I've never written a love poem. I thought a lot of poems were sort of love poems. And I thought, well, I would write a poem for Allison. What would that poem be? Then all of a sudden this happened. It's called Allison's Tree, number 10 in the book. I planted a little tree in the front yard for my wife. I won't tell her what kind of tree, no matter what her offering price. You see, this tree, it was a gift. It was the gift of life, a cooperation with God to do something sweet. I planted a thoughtful tree, you see, and the dance is wait and see. Will it fruit? Will it flower? Or will it open up in shade? To know its fate, she'll have to wait. For that surprise I will not trade. She'll ask from time to time, what kind of tree is it? I only say it's a magic tree. It'll turn out to be magic if somehow it survives me. I saw this little tree, the biggest of her sisters still left at Kroger. A limb broke off in the truck. It jammed into the window driving over. Digging out an old stump was fun. I finally managed, then threw in several kinds of dirt. I had to prune off the limb I damaged, and that part kind of hurt. But amongst the oaks, though, this tree is tiny. Is it possible? Could it have shrunk? It seems more like a stick, hardly passing for a trunk. It's become just like a playground to our neighborhood chipmunks. My moments as a loving caretaker are as far as I get to go. Will Allison's tree Christ forth with life or die this winter? I do not know. Hands dirty, inspecting leaves, holding a watering can. I wonder, what does God see in the limbs and the leaves of man? And does both a divine will and a cosmic karma steer life's unfolding plan? I hope we are given enough time so one day we may finally see what will be of our future and what will be of Allison's tree. Thank you. Thank you. So this next thought came to me. I called it number 5, the shape of life. I was sitting at the beach with my family on a family beach trip, probably Miller Lite in one hand and a lawn chair and a tent. And I was just watching that beautiful dance of geometry that was the pattern of the waves. The seagull come down and snatch a Dorito from a kid's hand, from the patterns that the sand would make as in this cooperation with the surf. So sitting there looking at that and just admiring the dance, this thought came to me. I called it the shape of life. We all know a one-dimensional reality is a myth. And 2 dimensions, that doesn't make sense at all. 3 dimensions is too often mankind's top floor. But I've heard there's something like 9 dimensions or more, described by philosophers and psychedelic explorers. I have come to see that each moment is a point inside of a fractal, a metadimensional toroidal fractal, the cosmic umbilical cord of God. And this very moment, this one, is just an energetic node or a pod. You and I each play a uniquely necessary role in realizing glory, life to the full, right here and now. To walk the path of the Christ is to turn the other cheek, smile into the teeth of the scowls. To seek the kingdom of heaven in this moment's abundance, whether joy or suffering compels, is to lay aside attachments, distractions, separate ego consciousness, and conjure up no more of our own hells. So the shape of life, heaven, takes form as we realize and allow the kingdom of God to be made of just what is, in joy and sadness, smiles and tears, here and now. The metadimensional, toroidal, fractal redivinizing of matter. We experience it in forms, in life and in death. But eternity is a fractal, a ladder, in what's given here and now, each next breath. I hope I even remembered that one right. I felt like I almost got lost. The next one's pretty self-explanatory. It's called Passing Days. We have a cat named Marley. She's made of stardust, just like me. When she talks to me in the morning, I think she knows she's truly seen. Sort of like my lime trees. They get stressed and they miss the sun. It all adds up to the same old line. It is all truly one. If creation could speak to us, I wonder what it all would say. The trees, the birds, the fish, I bet they'd ask us to change our ways. Because the future we are pursuing will eventually silence the birds, and trees will become novelties as mechanical lungs breathe our words. But maybe there's another way, a way of being that reconnects us with the earth. When we alchemize that let there be, breathe the mountains, the streams, you and me. No, nature's not the point of life. This ground is our brother, sister, mother, beyond the veil of foolishness of treating her as other. Human consciousness grew within a field of spin. We know it as earth, way, way back to times unknown. But mankind now ravages our soil. We treat her as victim, not as home. It all goes back to otherness, the weapon of evil in these present times. What do I know? I'm sitting in my sunroom talking to cats and spitting rhymes. How do I tie this one off? I'm not sure where this poem's going. How can oneness grow from otherness? Maybe more composting and less mowing. Okay, that line just didn't cut it. I'll have to think up another. Earth is pleading with us to treat her more as brother, less as other. So go outside, breathe in deep. Let your conscious presence run and play. Because all we've ever truly owned are present moments in passing days. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Technology. Again, this one I guess is pretty self-explanatory. I called it fireworks. Imagine with me for a minute, if you will, a ride you could describe as the epitome of a thrill. Let your memories return to a great fireworks show. Screaming out through open skies, fireworks tend to go just where they go. Red, white, green, and blue, they stretch out into the night. Their streaks and movements not criticized, not described as wrong or right. The designer fills each shell with hopes for the show. But the beauty is when they explode, they tend to go just where they go. Though it may seem kind of silly, I have an analogy to tell. The universe, as all we know it, is just a cosmic mortar shell. As God donates God, as our experiences, our communities, our friends, and lights the fuse on life, while we realize pop, ride, end. But could it be within the show, the sparks could become conscious, so that we'd stop inventing hells and piling them upon us? Conscious sparks instead would become, in accord with diverse divine design, fireworks of consciousness would be the literal glory cloud of the divine. Fireworks. Well, we tend to go just where we go because we sometimes forget that we co-create the show. So I put this one right in the middle because it's maybe the most central. The point that I think the book tries to speak to, I believe the Bible deals with it in the most elegant way that I've come across anywhere else that I've come across it. And it's in the story of the Garden of Eden. And so thinking through that at some point, this occurred to me, this piece called The Damned Ego Tree. Let's revisit a story that's been passed down through generations, a story about the dawning of suffering and of separations. When ego consciousness was first born, it was described as the fruit of a forbidden tree. Then separate selves hid behind separate bushes, and separate egos grew from the discarded seed. May I freshen up that allegory, speak clearly what I believe, that under the damned ego tree we forgot our inherent unity in the fabled story of Adam and Eve. The setting was a garden, all things growing forth naturally. The Garden of Eden grew human volition, animals, plants, weeds, and trees, the great earth-stretching evolution of earth in seas and soils and seeds. Before preferences entered the picture with the consciousness of infinitely separate you versus me. At that point in our evolution, though all things according to their natures thrived on earth free, but the lone exception to the initial fractal freedom was the fruit of the damned ego tree, because the knowledge of potential goods and potential evils would inevitably spread otherness to the corners on the breeze. But don't trust me. Let's try an experiment right here. Pay attention to your breathing, then to what your mind will next foment. My bet is that your next distracted thought will be made up of a knowledge of a longed-for good or a resisted evil, or a preference leading to competing with separate selves, other people, a potential windfall or a fear, professional ambitions or scares, enemies, friends, tacos, beers, a new car, or better hair. The game of egoic consuming, though, has become destructively redundant. We've lost inherent grounding to the storied life abundant. As consciousness is rapidly being lost, our moments now just consist of a jumble of compulsively anxious thoughts, of prides and fears, of shoulds and oughts, and marketing as the Newtown preacher promises meaning in things we've bought. But the momentary grows from the product of the errant misconception projecting otherness onto separate selves. Yet the lesson taught when Adam and Eve fell was about forgotten ontological oneness, not assigning blame and moral perils. The expanse between pure experience and ego consciousness was what was once described as the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. The fruit made us forget that it is fundamentally in terms and abstractions that we think. So said the late, great Alan Watts. So instead, I'll meet you in the now where we are more than just our thoughts. Since it's becoming increasingly clear that in order for earth to ever again be free, we must again begin to see all things as a cooperating us, not a competing you versus me, or entropic otherness will eventually boil off our 7 seas, ending life's story in separated misery, unless mankind can now transcend the fruit of the damned ego tree. Thank you. The wages of otherness we don't yet know, but our shared future no longer comes slow. Collectively, what we are becoming is how God falls into form like the snow. God's self-emptying love, living water, the cosmic sea, evolving in and as you and me. Yet currently, ego consciousness is driving this planet to its knees, multiplying suffering and injustice by the little threes. Trash may end up the legacy left behind of Earth's trees. We all know the adage, sex sells, but I think the powerful would now disagree. Otherness sells better than sex. The selling of pride and protections has all the grease. Yet somehow, in the inevitability of love, I still believe. One day we will all take a knee. But on earth, right now, we're all losing because this game we keep playing is not free. Okay, one day I had my hand on a protein shake and I was finishing it off. And this poem came to me. It's called How Will It Look to See Us Eat in the Future? How will it look to see us eat in the future? Was the thought I have finishing off the last of a protein shake. Food. After we are forced to realize that the separateness of ego consciousness is the Antichrist, not the goal. We all made a collective mistake. A future when meat and vegetables are not plentiful anymore because politicians and corporations once upon a time held the tap wide open. Full pour. Oh, to be truly impoverished, forsaken. Living in the West, I don't have a clue. And that's coming from a kid whose family needed charity, handouts, kindness, even food stamps too. But we will all know real poverty in the future unless we now radically change. We like to pretend that it's not our responsibility, but our consumption literally pours out suffering like rain. There are places on earth where life is birth, life, and death inside squalor, the consequence of our demand. Lives spent sourcing raw materials for us to chew up and mouth feed to Facebook, to Twitter, and Instagram. To the charge of raping once beautiful planet Earth, the class of 2020 was found guilty with blood on our pants. A landfall verdict of karma is being poured out onto the faces of the children of man. Look now, sorrow is growing. It's growing from inside our hands. Oh, in the future, I wonder how it will all be. In the affluent West, when we finally see, when we weep at the roots, eating the fruit that only grows on the limbs of barren trees. To actually know the sights, smells, and tastes to go with the names of earth's fabled fruit, our descendants would only dream at the chance. Real fruit would be considered the height of rare decadence. So I guess I should be happy if we end up achieving some astronaut-type future where we figure out some matrix-type shit and they chemicalize all our nutrients and we eat a man-made protein amino drip. Eventually I thought, I guess this is how we'll all eat, as the bottom of my cup made its crest. It looked like an oceanic sunset made out of chocolatey bliss, a post-workout kiss on the lips, but I was saddened by this view of the future, of an earth with less produce and more whips. Sorry, that one's kind of hard to get through. So I studied physics as well. That was part of what I was trying to explain. And I came across a number of really interesting physicists. There's one named Dr. Nassim Haramein that does some remarkable work in the quantum. And there's any number of people that do similar work and really holds a lot of hope for us in terms of what could be figured out in our energy situation. Or in any event, I was thinking through maybe a physics equation, and this poem came to me. It's called The Physicist's Key. Physicists are presently seeking a fundamental pattern of division. They postulate if they can find fractal pattern that grows division, humanity could escape this earthbound three-dimensional prison in which we're living. As a key to a lock, this understanding could birth creation. But with such power over things, would we end power systems or just remake them? I, for one, do not think we are ready, as in the sort of this is why we can't have nice things kind of way. Watch for yourself on tonight's news. Watch us accuse, watch us bruise, watch us judge, watch us weigh, watch us peruse the divided highlights of yet another divided day. It's a spinning fractal vision of division. Souls being torn asunder as internal combustion. We've become the fuel and we are being driven into their engine. Power systems preach worry about other and bow down to power. Just don't awaken. Just focus on this year's must-have things. Things we are trading earth away and making. Unconscious profit chasing and social faking with corporate politicians behind the wheel, we race to hell, and we're not breaking. Maybe this pattern of fractal division is our ticket. Maybe we sink the full court shot of saving earth. Maybe we brick it. That kind of math, though, is way above my limit. So instead, I'll work with my moments, try to be present to those I'm given, to bring unguarded, loving awareness to each moment has been the key since the beginning. So I'll meet you in the now, forgiving thisness in fractal spinning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this one, if you'll think back to the world, early 2020, June 2020, we had so much going on. And one of the things that struck me was, struck all of us, we lived it, it was all the racial division and all the protests in the streets, the injustice, the overreact. It was a mess. And I'm aware as that's going on and thinking to myself, how can I help? I probably look like the problem. How do I help? How can I? And sort of somehow I kind of landed on the idea that if I could just lift spirits, that was a way to love. You just lift people's spirits. And how do you lift spirits? I thought about it like a smile, like making somebody laugh. And so, really at the height of the focus on racial injustice that we had back then, I made it a point, anytime that I had the opportunity to any number of beautiful people of color, that I could find a way to share a smile. And it was the most beautiful practice. I loved it. I did it. I did it forever. I still do it, I guess. But it was just such a nice way to, there was a lot of tension at that time. And when you would have a smile reflected by a smile, it's what we're here for. And so I made that a practice, and I had any number of those that I can remember, but one in particular stuck with me. This came from that experience. We got to stay 4 days. We get to stay 4 days, said a girl in braids and bathing suit to me. She looked down on me and smiled. We were both on vacation, and in this moment, we were free. We had our portions of the good life: the sun, the sand, the smell of the sea, perfectly curated shops and markets stretched as far as your eyes could see. She said, we get to stay for 4 days. And with some sadness, she smiled down on me, from perched atop her mama's back like she was climbing on a tree. I didn't know how to respond. My plan went no further than my smile, but what fumbled out of my mouth, I wish I'd thought on for a while. This girl was 7 or 8, with braided pigtails tied up in those marble balls. Her older sister kept her hair natural. I wish the words I spoke had been more inspired and less factual, because I clumsily said, smiling back, I think we get to stay 4 days too. But I'm not even sure on that math. I didn't take time to think it through. She seemed well loved within a tribe, family, as 4 generations of women headed home in a cramped up ride. To make room, they offered me their extra waters, but I politely declined. As for bottled waters, I too was oversupplied. But I wonder if my eyes reflected the sadness of our vacation ending dismay, how we all longed for more vacation, free from suffering, free from worry, free for just another day. There was a sharing in the air as we were untethered from life's cares. The weight of her 6 words caught me totally unawares. After my 4 days, we were all back home, in lives as we had known it. I wish right there instead we'd hatched a plan, each gone back to a power system and overthrown it. Because life should be lived free, freed from fear by just what is within each present moment. Freedom is ours. It's our preferences that make us forget we already own it. We labor all year long for a couple weeks, for homes, for stuff, for our 4 days. Human consciousness, though, exists to manifest love, not to chase this year's borrowed clothes and borrowed stays. I helped the grandmother pack up her tent, and I wish them blessings on their way. But I cannot forget her bittersweet smile and young voice say, we got to stay for 4 days. Thank you. And one more, and then I'll let you loose. I don't remember when this was, but at the same time, I had several friends that were dealing with, health issues with their parents, be it, sort of those big, scary diagnoses or, just all the things. And I was thinking about what that has to be like to be in a conversation with someone as, they approach their death. And so in that thought exercises, I was just sort of, was trying to be present to his situation. Something came to me, and I wrote a poem. It's called There's Something Made of Love Up Next. It has got to just feel mental to stare into your own impending death. Death's goodbye sure makes us fearful. The abyss opening up after breath. What is next? Will we float or will we stand? Is someone waiting, reaching out for our hand? Will we sink into fear? Will we breathe into faith? Or will we hide in depression's dark lands? Because my time at the precipice will soon arrive. Human life is so cosmically brief, or should I have said comically brief. So before God draws this soul from its sheath, I'll speculate, take a guess before my grave wears a wreath. There is something made of love up next. And there are things here that make me sad to think to miss. Marriages and births to be witnessed, laughing at friends when they trip. The electricity of a kiss, picking up fruit, drawing it close, and taking a whiff. There is something made of love up next. And there has never been nothing anywhere in the same way that steel pouring out of a foundry is subatomically still mostly air. Matter is just a field of perceived spatial boundaries. And yet there is no emptiness anywhere. Out to the farthest corner of the cosmos, nothing just plain old does not exist. There is spirit, movement, potential in the quantum. In the fractal field of the subatomic, there is no bottom. The light after the darkness insists. It is love. It is infinite. It is heaven. There is something made of love up next, where our purpose will be manifest everywhere. It is the land of union, communion, where we'll be after laying down cares. Though the flight from here into eternal reunion, it does not come with a map, so it falls to each of us to smile, let go, release. God is love and will fill in our cracks, provide courage, faith, vision where we lack. So as you fly home, don't turn and look over your back. Your circuitous flight into the singularity of love has always remained eternally on track. Thank you. This is where it all started, in this field. So I had that at the very back, at the epilogue. Do y'all want to hear the epilogue? Yeah. All right, it's kind of quick. The epilogue of the book is called, Why the Hell Are We Now Perfuming Trash Bags? So yeah, I was told I had to write an epilogue, like to sum it all up. It's somehow what I wrote was, why the hell are we now perfuming trash bags? Come on now. Are you telling me that on self-destruction, we are just this hell-bent, that we now multiply consumerism's chemical footprint by mindlessly destroying with all our toying Earth's environment? We show no respect for our home, and we're overdue with Earth's rent. I wish I could end this one hopeful. Be more song, less lament. But we are trading away the only planet we even know life exists in exchange for trash bags now featuring a fresh, clean chemical scent. Humanity seems to have ordered hell and added on a supersizing. We're spending our last days cooking up chemicals for refuse stench disguising. The future smell of our dead planet will be slightly less putrefying, since marketing companies now sell the trash bags full of some shit that's odor neutralizing. And yet, from the quantum of individual self-sacrificial decisions, hope against hope is arising. So it's time to hang up this pen. Stop wasting time philosophizing. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it.